Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast, the show for women who are seeking more fulfillment in life and simply not getting it from their current situation. We focus specifically on careers, but hey, we spend a lot of time in our careers, so making changes here will definitely create an impact in your overall happiness. I'm your host, Simone Morris, and my mission is to empower women to succeed. I believe that in order to powerfully own your career, you must decide and claim that you want to sit in the driver's seat. You must know that you deserve better and be willing to not only do the requisite work, but be willing to go out on a limb to ensure your success. Each episode focuses on profiling a leader who is clearly demonstrating ownership of their career. Join me and my guests as we explore career journeys and bring you actionable strategies to use to get into the driver's seat for your career. Because ultimately, your career is your responsibility. Let's get into the show. Hey everybody, it's Simone Morris. Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. And this week we have with us Bettina. I have to tell you, I cannot say her last name for the life of me. And I try, but my accent is just so terrible. And you will understand why in a minute. But Bettina is from Austria and she's the first guest from abroad. Bettina, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. So let me tell you guys a little bit about Bettina and what interests me about Bettina. First of all, we both speak the language of project management. And you guys know that I have a project management background. I teach project management. So that's of interest to me. And Bettina, she wants to help women gain confidence. And that is what I'm about. My message is about putting women in the driver's seat in their careers. So it just seemed like a really good fit to have her come to the podcast. She's still working full-time and just making some magic happen on the side as well. So Bettina, tell us just a little bit more about yourself, and please again say the last name.
So I'm Bettina. My last name is pronounced Árnafjall, but the way you write it is actually Árnafjall. So don't worry if you get it wrong. That's also why I don't have a website with my name, because nobody's going to get it right. That's why I call my business Women's Career Lift. Then you can find it more easily, because my name is really, really complicated. I am Austrian, so I actually grew up and I live in the heart of the Alps. If you don't really know where it is, think of Sound of Music. That's basically where I grew up, more or less.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm having a visual just right now.
It's the easiest, I think, for most Americans. The easiest association with Austria is Sound of Music.
Well, tell us about your background.
Yes. So basically, I am offering women's career coaching and also coaching for job applications. And I still work also as a life cycle manager, basically a project manager in the pharmaceutical industry. I started my side business, Women's Career Lift, about a year ago, after I had worked for 8 years as a team manager in various teams in various industries. And I had teams that were from 3 to 30 employees. So quite a lot of different teams, also a lot of different nationalities, different backgrounds. And during all this time, I just realized that when I was hiring people or when I was doing performance reviews with my team, that basically women were not doing so well at presenting themselves and their achievements and their strengths compared to men. So I just felt like that they had a bit of issues with confidence or with just getting across at what they were good and why they were the right people for the job. Probably, I don't like to generalize. Probably many men also struggle with that. I just noticed it much more, when I was working with women. And that's basically why I started the side business, because I felt like somebody needs to help all these women out there, just to learn how to present yourself in a confident way. And especially when I worked, with a very international team and I had job applications from all over the world, I noticed that especially like in the Austrian and German applications, there was not much personality and not much life and not much, confidence. It was all very standardized and very, copy paste really. So this is what got me into this whole idea, because I saw how other countries do it, how people from the US, for example, do it, or from the English speaking world. And I thought it reaches much better if somebody says, oh, I really enjoyed this, or I have a passion for this and this topic, and that's why I want to do this job, instead of, oh, I have this experience and I have that experience, and that's why I think I would be the right person. And so that's how it all started.
Okay, so tell us about this eye-opening moment. You talk about doubling your salary, and that's definitely something that most people, I'm sure, want to do. Tell us about that experience and how that was a pivotal moment for you in your career.
Yes, so basically, I was looking into a new job, and I was in a very comfortable position that I had a job. I didn't have any pressure to get a new one. I just was putting my fingers out to, have a look what's out there. And I applied for this job, and in Austria, it is a law that you have to write into every job offer how much the minimum salary is. And they did that so that women will not, or also men, I guess, but I think it was mainly done because of the gender pay gap. So basically they did this so that you can see what the minimum salary is. And then basically there's a general work agreement for each industry. And this one describes how much extra pay you can get on this minimum salary, depending on your years of experience in that area. So basically, I looked at a job offer and I looked at the stated minimum salary, and then I thought, okay, so I already have a couple of years experience in that area, so I'm going to ask for 10% more. And I thought that was really, the maximum that you could get. I thought it was crazy to ask for more. And then I told my husband, and my husband said, but this is ridiculous. You should be getting much more money. You're much better than that. And you need to make sure, that people really recognize your value. You should take at least 15%. And I thought he was completely crazy because that was way too much. And then, I thought, okay, maybe it's worth it to talk about that to a couple of other people before I go into the negotiation. So I asked a couple of other men, and I actually then talked to one who worked in that company before. And he said, no, I should absolutely ask for even 20% more. And I was like, what? I said, yeah, because, once you're in there, it's really hard to get a raise and things like that. So I thought, okay, well, I can try it. I have a safe job. I don't necessarily need to get this job. So whatever, let's try it. Let's see how it works out. So I prepared, arguments. I prepared my negotiation. And then it took me a lot of courage actually to do this. And to say what I wanted to get, which sounded completely crazy to me, but I did it. And then when they were trying to negotiate and to, give me a different offer, I just said no, because I didn't have any pressure, And then they came around and they said, yeah, okay, it's fine. We can do that. And I was so surprised because I did not really have to fight. I just presented my arguments. And then I did not say yes to their first counteroffer. I just said no and waited for what they would bring on. And nothing bad happened. They actually said yes. that was really, really surprising for me. I would never have expected it. And that's when I realized that, sometimes it really pays off to have the courage and just, go for what you want.
Absolutely. And how did you go about building that courage muscle?
So for me, really, it was preparation. I mean, preparation is the key, really going through what I think are my selling points, what are my strengths, why am I worth this? And then think about potential counter arguments that they could bring up and prepare for these. And it also helped really that this friend of mine who worked in that company said, no, you can just say no. And you can also just go back and come again with the same arguments. You don't have to always have like a new argument if they say no. If the one that, if you have one main argument that underlines really your value and it proves it all, you don't need to have like, oh, and there's also this, and there's also this, and there's also this,
Sure.
So preparation really helped. That was the first thing. And then also the knowledge that the world will not end if I don't get this job.
Absolutely. Yeah. We can survive rejection. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. So tell us, Bettina, a bit about what is your formula for successfully owning your career?
Basically, for me, it's taking action. It's really, really simple. I know so many people who just talk about what they want to do and what they want to change, and then they never do anything. They just keep complaining and keep waiting for things to happen, but that doesn't lead anywhere. I mean, you need to do something to get where you want to get. People cannot read your mind, and you should not expect them to do it. And you should not wait for things to be perfect, because usually there's not a perfect moment. So whatever it is that you want to achieve, just take action, just take the first step.
And that's helped you in your career journey. What was the moment that signified to you that you were in the driver's seat for your career?
I was always I was always an action taker. So I usually, when I want to do something and I set my mind to it, I do it. Let's say, I had a couple of jobs, my first and the second job, which were not really what I was looking for or were not really fulfilling for me. So when I realized that they were not what I wanted, I just looked for additional tasks, additional responsibilities. If it didn't get better, I got myself a new job. So this was, like an example of how I always used to go after what I wanted. But for me, it got more clear really when I started listening to podcasts. There was one, for example, which is called Join Up Dots. It made me realize that, my mindset was actually holding me back a little bit. So it was me that I had to change in order to achieve, bigger things. And from that point on, I just started to, act with more intention. I set my mind to that one day I will be on that podcast. And actually, a couple of weeks ago, I finally recorded that podcast. So that was a really great moment for me. And then there was one big point when actually almost 2 years ago, my father died, because it made me realize how short our life is, and, that it can really suddenly be all over. And it's a complete waste to spend all your life in a job that you don't like and always wait for the time when you finally retire and then you can start living. Because what happens then? You retire and 5 years later, suddenly everything is over. So that's when I became more intentional, about all the choices. That's also when I started with Women's Career Lift, because I had this feeling in me for a long, long time that I wanted to do something to help women, but it was always very vague and not concrete. And from that point on, it just got, very clear that I needed to do this. I needed to start it, and I needed to start it now, not wait for whatever better day there would be.
I love that. I love that. So building on that formula, what advice would you give to someone wanting to own their career?
So the first thing is really stop complaining. There's so many people who just sit and complain. I had a team with a lot of relatively young female employees, and they were complaining so much. And the thing is that complaining just gets you a bad reputation. Nobody likes an employee who's always negative and always against everything. And if really a promotion would come up, most managers won't consider you if you're known as a complainer, because nobody wants to have a negative person in a higher position. So stop complaining. That's the first thing. Instead, just take action, So if you're part of such a group where everybody is always complaining, the first thing that you can do is, for example, just start having lunch with somebody else, You don't need to make like a hard cut, but instead of having lunch with the same people every day, just go for lunch with somebody else. Start surrounding yourself with people who are positive, or just say to the people, I don't want to talk about this anymore. If you have a colleague who always talks about how bad your boss is or whatever, just say, no, let's change subject, or let's focus on something else, The other thing is that I think is very important for many women is you need to become visible. I used to think this myself, and I see that many young women are thinking that if you do a great job, that's enough. People will notice, you will get a promotion or you will get a raise. And while this works in school, where the teachers look at everything you do and then they will give you good grades, this will not work in business, unfortunately. In business, in a company, you need to do self-marketing, and you need to make sure that you become visible to the important stakeholders in your company. I personally always felt that this was really, embarrassing, all these people who only talk about themselves. But you need to get to a point where you realize that that's just how office dynamics work. And if you want to get somewhere, you need to start doing a little bit of self-marketing. That doesn't mean, that you have to always talk about yourself and how great you are. That's not what I'm talking about. It's just making sure that your work is visible to your boss and also to your boss's boss. Because, managers are very, very busy, and they don't have time to look at all your work. And usually they only get the negative things on their desk. So if you are achieving good results, at least you should let them know, every now and then, like maybe in a one-to-one or whatever, where you don't feel like it's bragging. Just bring it up, say, okay, this week I achieved this and that. Just tell them or show them what you were able to do. And the last thing I would say is really don't be afraid what others might think or say. It really doesn't matter. You do not need to make other people happy, You need to make yourself happy. And if you do something just to make other people happy, but it makes you unhappy, where does that leave you, It doesn't serve you if you do something just to please others,
Sure. Awesome. Well, how have you dealt with taking risk in your career?
I'm not the big risk taker. I do take calculated risks, but I'm not the leap of faith person. So I would not just quit my job and start off a business just with an idea. That's me personally. I like to have, I like to be sure that it works. I like to have a bit of security. So I will gradually move somewhere, or I will test the waters, and then I will go for it. So basically, this is why I'm starting Women's Career Lift on the side, or I started it on the side, and I want to grow it, and then, ramp down my day job. Eventually, one day, be my own boss, run my own business full time. But for the moment, I think, I think it's important that you don't let everything, just throw everything out of the window and just go for it. For me, that doesn't work.
Okay. Well, what resources have worked for you, online or otherwise, in your career, in owning your career, that is?
So there's one thing, it's probably not really a resource, but it was really eye-opening for me. It's a poem called Our Deepest Fear by Marianne Williamson. And it's all about how we are afraid to live up to our potential, and how we usually make ourselves small, and that actually making ourselves small doesn't serve anyone. It just makes you unhappy, but it doesn't really make other people happier. So that was really, really eye-opening for me. So if you have time, check it out. It's not a very long poem, and it's really, really inspiring.
So is that around really mindset work, a resource to get people to open up their minds to bigger possibilities? Is that your suggestion?
Yes, it's basically realizing that holding yourself back doesn't really make you happy. And actually, if you stop holding yourself back, other people will not feel worse because of it. Other people will actually feel inspired by what you do, and not so much what we always think, or many people probably think, that, it will create jealousy, or, just people will start talking about you. Maybe they do, but I mean, most people will actually be inspired by what you do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other resources?
Yes, so there was another one. For me personally, was a book called The Strengths Finder 2.0. So this is a book and an online test, and I recommend this for everybody who's not really clear about their own strengths, because sometimes you have a feeling, you're kind of good at something, but you don't really know how you can apply this to your personal life or to your business life. It doesn't really matter. And this book really helps you. So first of all, you take an online test that takes about 20 minutes. You answer a bunch of questions, and then you get the result with your top 5 strengths, and you get actually some, for each strength, you get about 10 points of advice how you can apply this in your life. So if you want to improve in your business life, then there are suggestions for business. If it's for your personal life, there are also such suggestions. And I found it really, really helpful to become clear about what my real strengths are, because very often, you don't really realize what your strength is, because it's just something that you do so well that you don't realize it's something special. It's something that really sets you apart. It's kind of, oh yeah, I have always done this well. This is not a big deal. It's not, why is this something special? So then when you're in a job situation where you need to, like in a job interview or in a performance review where you need to sell yourself, you will not think about these things. You will not be proud of these things, because you think, they come so easily. So yeah, it's not even worth talking about it.
What is a strength that came up for you that may or may not have been a surprise to you? But this is Marcus Buckingham. I saw him, the Strength Finder, I think he did with Gallup, which is amazing, an amazing resource. So tell me, what came up for you that was a surprise to you that you've been able to leverage in moving forward in owning your career?
I don't quite remember what it was called. I think it was called Relator or something like that. So basically that I am actually good at, establishing connections between people and, kind of, it was combined also with harmony, so that I'm actually really good at finding compromises and bringing people together at a table and, make them find a compromise or really get back to the point and focus on what's really necessary and on moving forward rather than just having arguments and so on.
That's wonderful. That's a great resource that others can tap into. Well, as we begin to wrap up, tell our listeners how they can connect with you.
So the easiest thing is really my website. That's womenscareerlift.com, Women's Career Lift all together. Otherwise, I'm also on Instagram at Women's Career Lift, or I also have a Facebook page called Women's Career Lift. If you want to find me on LinkedIn, you will have to use my normal name. So that's Bettina, Bettina, and then Árnafjall. So that's Arnafjall. But it's easier if you go to Women's Career Lift. There's also a LinkedIn button there. You just click there and then you get to my LinkedIn profile as well.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Well, Bettina, thank you so much for taking us further international. We do have an international presence with the podcast, but now it's awesome that you're connecting with us from Austria and giving us another perspective internationally on how to own your career. So thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was really, really a pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to hear from any listeners who want to have some advice. Reach out to me. If you have some feedback for me, also let me know. I'm really, really excited.
All right. Thanks so much. Thank you for listening to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. It is my hope that you enjoyed today's episode. You can check out the show notes for this episode on the SimoneMorrisEnterprises.org website by clicking the podcast menu. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and tell a friend or two about it.